Alright, what's up, peeps, and thanks for coming back to the channel if you're a homie. Now, these albums I'm going to talk about are ones that do very good at the very niche thing that they're into, but for whatever reason, people outside the niche listen to it. Since there's nothing that they really like, it becomes universally despised. This is a handful of albums that I think really don't deserve the heaping amount of hate they receive, so who knows? If it sounds interesting, it might be worth checking out. Now, we have a pretty infamous one, Merzbow with Pulse Demon. This album, for the better or worse, seems to be the literal face of noise music. No matter what, from noise rock to even noise pop, this damn album will be mentioned somewhere. Why is the biggest album for the most inaccessible noise subgenre represent an entire subgenre of music? I wish I could tell you. Of course, people who don't really like strange music will despise the album, call it the worst thing ever. To be fair, it is probably the worst album to get into harsh noise. It's loud, in your face, and you either get it or not. You might not, probably, because it goes from 0 to 100 without anything to adjust you to it. But as a harsh noise record, it's pretty damn good. It starts off with the infamous Woodpecker number one. Every time I listen to this album, the first two tracks always come off as the weakest. I see it as the basic structure of the album, abrasive harsh noise, but but the album's excellence is when it comes to subtle changes in the noise and build-up. Tracks like Spiral Brass and Ultramarine Blues, sprinkling cool variations and feedback and builds it up. It's kind of hard to explain, but to be fair, harsh noise is a pretty abrasive form of ambient music. Not everyone's gonna get it, and that's fine, but people dismissing it as a real trend, it sucks as a real fan of the album. And then we have Torso Fuck with Erotic Diarrhea Fantasy. I do get some of the hate for this album. There's three overly long samples, which it seems to be the only thing that the haters ever focus on, which is kind of weird. But the rest of the samples are fine. Torso Fuck play a blend of slam death metal with porno. Oh, what did I put in porno grind elements? I meant gore grind elements. People don't understand this subgenre, slap the word porno grind subgenre onto it because whoa, it has sexual themes. No, no, that's not right. In fact, you're completely wrong. As for the music itself, it's pretty good for what it sets out to do. The production is muddy, but they make the drum machine work pretty well. People tend to hate drum machines, but in my impossible search for a drummer for my death metal project, I'm more sympathetic for those who use them. The slams are well done, the gore grind elements complement the slams nicely. It's pretty simple minded, so there's really not much else to say about it. If you do plan to check it out, be ready to skip some samples. They go on from 1 to 2 minutes. I mean, not even I bother with them, and I'm an album purist. Burzum with Dowdy Balders. Now I wanted some dungeon synth. I love myself some dungeon synth. It's my favorite form of ambient music, mainly just because I like high fantasy. And this album encapsulates what makes dungeon synth so great. Cheap synths and minimalist song structures. The main problem people have with the album, other than it not being black metal, it's repetition. Repetition is pretty much Burzum's, bread and butter, even if you're a fan of the black metal stuff. But if you do like the loop that Burzum has going on, great. If you don't, tough luck. The first track is pretty bad, but the rest of the album gets better and better the longer that it goes. It eventually culminates in some of the best dungeon synth I've ever heard in my life. I can't. I don't speak Norwegian. I can say Morty Reknakorum, but not the first one. I'll just put it up on screen. Illa is a very solemn track with Morty Raknakorum, the best track on the entire album. It's so great that I could put it on repeat and not notice a thing. The natural progression of the main uplifting and solemn melodies gives this a very bittersweet atmosphere, which is a very rare thing in Dungeon Synth. It's always a very cathartic thing when it happens. It's awesome. Um, it's hard to describe kind of just how much I love and cherish this track, Morty Raknakorum. It's a masterful display of this niche subgenre of music. Burzum's dungeon synth in general gets a tidal wave of undeserved hate, mainly from black metal elitists and Burzum haters. It's very sad to see people talk about it as the worst thing ever, as it's clear that they won't give the album a fair shake, and they're also the loudest. This is a good album to decide if you like dungeon synth or not. John Lennon, Unfinished Music number one. This one's a pretty interesting case. I'm pretty sure when John decided to do this is when John just decided to do whatever he wanted, and that was just he felt like making Revelation 9 music. This was kind of like I think this was a more of like a backlash type thing against all the pop fame that he was getting. But anyhow, it was meant to be decisive. I found this record to be incredibly calming, even with Yoko Ono's wailing. The incredibly psychedelic atmosphere is done very well with the mellotron sampling. I also like the distinct vintage production, which kind of adds to the whole atmosphere. I'm not really a guy that listens to like a lot of like music that's as old as it, so I kind of find it interesting. Normal. So normally bonus tracks are handled pretty poorly by labels, but Remember Love is such a great song, especially at the end of the album. It ends it on a bittersweet note. It really enhances the entire experience. Um, I would say this is the one case of a bonus track being done very, very well. Considering that it was made by one of the biggest pop stars, I can kind of see why most people stumbled upon it, just did not like it. But if you're into stuff like tape music or just weird stuff in general, it was a pretty good release. Emmer with Felony. This album is nowhere near perfect. I'm just gonna get this out there. But that's mainly due to the vocals, frankly. Frank, Frank, Frankie. The lyrics and vocals are terrible, stereotypical medical bullshit. It sounds like instead of going to therapy, Frankie decided to force his entire band to help project his feelings. Kind of seems like he had a breakup. So, what's his response? Threatened to stalk and murder the girl for a good majority of the album. At least he keeps the girl anonymous. Uh, the riffs are where the album does best. It does pretty good beat down hardcore with constant breakdowns and killer riffs. There's some pretty boring tracks, mainly with the philosophy of a time traveler who don't be one. It's not as bad as most people say, although the vocals will be the biggest thing to ignore. Waking the Cadaver was Beyond Cops, Beyond God. I could have put pretty much any slam death metal release here, but this band deserves a spot here the most. I don't understand the hate for this band at all. What makes Waking the Cadaver so abhorrent? I don't know. Even Slam fans hate them. This album makes it so they drop their sloppy playing from the first album in favor of a more old school type of brutal death metal. In fact, the vocals make the band a step up from a lot of brutal death metal. I know a lot of people hate deathcore, but I don't know. The vocalist, he does such a great job of it. Um, it kind of makes the band distinct, and deathcore just gets a lot of blind hate that I feel bad for the people who listen to it. But yeah, the production is questionable, and the band would improve on this formula greatly. But if you like slam and have an open mind, to give this a shot. Uh, the whole goal here is to kind of just to get people to look past the immense hate these albums get and try to look at it for what it is. It's not perfect, which means it's the worst thing conceived by man, apparently. Let me know what you guys